Hey guys, it's Joel Williams and Chase Elleby coming to you with our first video out of a series of 52 weeks of personal injury. What we want to do over the course of the next 52 weeks is take you through various stages of the personal injury claims process to help you understand what you may be looking at and what the entire process from pre-suit stage to dealing with attorneys to trial and all of that includes. So today what we'd like to do is talk to you about what you should expect from your personal injury attorney. So Chase and I have come up with 5 different ideas that may be the same. We haven't shown them to each other yet, so I don't know. We'll just kind of wing it and go down our list and figure out what are the top 5 things that each of us think you should expect from a personal injury attorney. You want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I guess for me, and I think for anybody looking to hire a personal injury attorney, the number one thing would be honesty, right? That's the number one thing I think you would want from any person in general, but especially an attorney who's going to be there to guide you through what is most of the time a very difficult situation. So I think for me, at least, honesty is number one for sure.
Yeah, and that's, you say honesty and you kind of think about it, it seems like that's a no-brainer. And of course, my attorney should be honest with me.
Right.
But you and I have both seen it too many times where there's an attorney that either maybe makes a mistake, or maybe she misses a deadline, or maybe she tells the potential client that she thinks the case is worth more than it really is, just to get that business. So it does happen where attorneys are not necessarily fully honest and upfront about stuff. So, and that can be hard to tell sometimes, but at least in our opinion, honesty is absolutely one of the most important things in any attorney-client relationship. And that goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I think kind of piggybacking on a little bit about what you said kind of segues into my second one, not to jump ahead, but would be communication.
Yeah.
Right? I think communication is probably the single most, well, not as important as honesty, but one of the biggest, I think, things when hiring or looking to hire an attorney needs to be discussed, right? How are you going to communicate? What's the frequency going to be? And being clear with the communication. That's always, I think, the biggest issue.
Yeah, that was my number one, is communication, because I would be willing to wager that, at least half of our clients that we have that had a different attorney previously and then ended up terminating or firing that attorney, the first complaint they have for us is lack of communication. And it is so important. I mean, you have to know, from an attorney's perspective, we need to know when somebody's done treating, who they're treating with, all aspects of communications they may have had with the insurance company prior to hiring us. And the client needs to know from the personal injury attorney, what's going on with my case? Do we have all the evidence we need to prove each element of the claim? And generally what's going on, because there are times during the case where, say, we've got all the evidence we need and maybe the client is done or still treating actively. There's not a whole lot going on outside of that treatment process. And so sometimes if you're not communicating and having a phone conversation or sending emails back and forth or text messages sometimes, it may seem like the attorney's not doing anything. And so I think, clear, constant, or at least regular communication from your attorney is very important.
Right.
Well, you stole my number one, so and my number two.
Okay.
So we're on the same page.
Were they switched?
They were switched. So
I think I have my notes.
I'm going with number 3. So I would say informed advice on potential settlements.
That's very similar to my number 3.
Is it? Okay.
Clear expectations.
That's right. Yeah. So lots of times, if you're not in the personal injury realm every day and you have a case and you're trying to figure out what's fair, what should my case settle for, some people want the attorney to tell them, do this or don't do that, or exactly what to do in any situation dealing with numbers. I typically tell people that what we're going to do is we're going to give you all of the information you need to make an informed decision. And we're going to give you our advice and our recommendation. But anytime it comes to money, you can say, Chase, you're crazy. That's that's so much money. I'm never turning that down. And you have to take it if that's what the client tells you. Or you may advise somebody to settle it, and the client may say, no, that's not quite enough money. I'd rather just go to trial.
Right.
And we are prepared and we'll do that. Unfortunately, I've seen sometimes where attorneys will actually settle a case without getting express permission from the client for a particular number. And I just think that's sort of not the right way to go about doing things. So typically what we'll have is like 3 ranges, right? There'll be one range where we say, no, that's not even close to the right amount. You should never take that. Then there'll be another range where the number will be so high, we look at the client and say,
Better.
you're crazy not to take this number. That's more than fair. But most of the time, those settlement amounts are somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And we're saying, it's the high side of the middle, the low side of the middle. And here's why we think that.
Right.
Because it does you no good as a client if we just say that's a good number or a bad number. You deserve to know why. And I think it's important for any attorney to be able to communicate the reasons why they are giving particular advice to a client, especially when it comes to settlement.
Right. And that goes back to like the expectations, right? Is I always try to convey to my clients, if A, B, and C happens, this is likely what you can expect.
Yeah.
Right. And having that clear, communication about the expectations, I think is very important, especially when looking to hire an attorney.
That's right.
Yeah.
So was that your number 3?
That was my number 3.
What's your number 4?
Hard worker. You want an attorney that's actually going to go to work for you, right? An attorney that is doing what they say they're going to do. And someone who, again, just kind of, if they're going to do it, they keep you updated. They get results, and they get results quickly when the case calls for it.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that too. I wrote down diligence as my number 4, right?
Very similar in our.
Yeah, it kind of goes without saying, but it's something that you should not take for granted, because you should expect from your personal injury attorney diligence and hard work in the claims process, because as the injured party, you have the burden of proof. You have to prove that if say it's a car wreck, that this car wreck was not your fault and that it was somebody else's fault. You have to prove why it's that person's fault. Then you have to prove that whatever they did to cause the wreck caused your injuries. In other words, this trauma hurt me in this way. And then you have to prove what the amount of your damages are. All of that burden of proof is on the injured party. And it's our job as the attorneys to work hard to gather that evidence, to prove the case. We can't just write a letter and say, hey, Allstate, you need to pay this person $100,000 because they're hurt. You got to have the evidence to back it up. And even more so, if you can't get the case settled and you have to go to a jury trial, then you have to carry that burden of proof. And the only way to do that is, like you said, through hard work and being diligent about finding all the documents, interviewing all the witnesses, and getting the evidence that you need to win the case.
Exactly.
So, all right. Number 5 for me was an attorney should always put the client's interest ahead of their own.
No, absolutely.
So, a good example of that would be when it comes time for settlement. If we know that the client needs X amount of dollars to pay all of their bills, to pay their attorney's fees, and all of that, sometimes you're dealing with limited amounts of insurance. Right? So the minimum limits policy in Georgia is $25,000. If the client has $100,000 of medical bills, we have been known on more than one occasion to tell this person, you don't need us. Like, you literally can take your bills and your records and send it off to the insurance company, and they should write you a check. If they don't write you a check, give us a call. And that's an example of really maybe not the best business practice, because we don't get paid to give that advice, but it's the best thing for the person who calls us, which is more important.
Right. And I always tell my clients, my goal is always, always, always to maximize their recovery. Right. It's always about the client. And that doesn't mean filing suit. That's probably the clearest example I get. Like, my goal is to maximize your recovery. I could get you Y if we filed suit, but they're offering you X now, and it's probably worth your while to strongly consider that, because it might not maximize your recovery if we put it in suit, because you've got more money involved. It takes certainly a lot longer. So yeah, it's always, client first, no matter what. It's always about maximizing the recovery, doing what's best for them. And again, kind of going back to one of the other points, is just putting clear expectations and communicating clearly why that's the case.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's as simple as just writing it out. Like here are the numbers. It's like a simple math problem, and take a look at it, and give them our advice. Like you said, I mean, it's always I give my my professional and expert advice on what I think a client should do. But at the end of the day, it's not my decision. But like I said, it's always geared towards maximizing their recovery.
Yeah, and I think as far as putting the client's interest ahead of your own as an attorney, it's not always just about the money, right?
Right.
Because different people have different anxiety levels and have different levels of stress that they're able to handle in a healthy manner.
Different risk tolerance as well.
That's right. Yeah. So, for some people, the best thing for that client may be to settle the case for less money than going through the stress of a trial. For others, it makes no sense to settle for less money because they can easily handle the stress and the anxiety that's associated with a trial. Right. So that goes back sort of to communication, right? Like you got to get to know your attorney. Your attorney's got to take the time to get to know you so that he or she can properly advise you on what's best for your particular situation.
Yeah, exactly.
So, did you have a different number 5 than me?
It was a little different.
All right.
Results, right? You always want results. I always tell people, see what that attorney's done, right? If you're looking to hire someone for any type of law, right? See what their success rate is, what the results are, what their reviews are, what other people say about, how they handled their case. So I think that's important when looking, to hire another attorney.
Yeah. So I remember when I first started out, when we first started this firm, I had the experience from working for other people, but I didn't have the results for myself with my own firm, right? So it takes time to build that up, but you definitely, if you're talking to an attorney who maybe has just started out their firm, look at what their track record was before that. Right. If you have an attorney that's been practicing law for a long time with their own firm, make sure that they have the results in cases like yours, right? Do they mostly handle divorce or do they mostly handle personal injury cases? If they do handle personal injury cases, have they handled car wrecks, if that's what your case is? If they've handled trip and falls, if that's what your case is? Medical malpractice, if that's what your case happens to be. So yeah, I agree. It's results, but it's also results for that particular area of practice that you need an attorney for.
Right. Just like doctors, lawyers tend to specialize. So
that's right. That's right. Is that all you got?
That's all I have.
Okay, that's all I've got. So that will end the first video series of our 52 weeks of personal injury. We will come to you next week with how to deal with an insurance company after a car wreck. So we hope that this video has been helpful to you. We hope you'll tune in next week to make it easy for you to find those videos that come out once each week for us, hopefully Thursdays at 6:00 p.m. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications so you'll know when we release a new video. And while you're at it, go ahead and like this video. And if you have any additional comments about things that you think you should expect or any person should expect from a personal injury attorney, just hit it in that comment section below and we'll do our best to respond.